Her voice sliced through the house like shattered glass. "He's not the father." I froze mid-turn of the screwdriver. The crib I was building suddenly felt like a coffin for my pride. From the kitchen she laughed, in Japanese, believing I couldn't understand. But I did. Every word. Every syllable that tore through my chest like a blade. My grip slipped. Metal cut deep. Blood hit the wood. Silence hit harder. That's when I realized my wife wasn't confessing to her mother. She was burying me alive, right there, in our own home. I didn't scream. I listened. If you were me, what would you do next? Follow, because this story only gets darker. I'm Merritt Cole, logistics analyst. I keep other people's chaos moving. Freight, routes, deadlines. At home, it's simpler. A small house in Hilliard, Ohio, 2 trees out front that drop leaves like clockwork, and a garage that always smells like cut lumber because Bill, my wife's stepdad, shows up with scrap wood and stories. He's steady. The kind of man who measures twice, cuts once, and never makes you feel small. Naomi paints in the spare room. Her mother, Keiko, visits with a casserole and opinions. I tell myself this is family, and for a while, I believe it. I want a son who will wear my last name on the back of a Little League jersey. I want a daughter who learns to tie knots and change a tire. Simple dreams, honest ones. There's one thing I don't say out loud. I speak Japanese. I learned it back when I was dumb and lonely and thought cartoons could teach you how to be brave. I kept it to myself. Some things you hide because people weaponize them. From the kitchen one afternoon, the words flowed out like a draft under a locked door. Soft, careless, fast. Matt? No? The name lands like a nail in dry wood. I don't move. The screwdriver in my hand suddenly weighs a pound heavier. And just like that, the everyday life I thought I had starts to tilt. Bill runs a thumb along the crib rail he sanded smooth. "Solid," he says. "Kid'll sleep like a rock." I manage a smile that doesn't belong to me. My throat tastes like pennies. Naomi and Keiko rattle pots in the kitchen, their words crisp and quick, a language I'm not supposed to hear. I catch one line clean as a blade, about Trent, like the name has been hiding under our couch the whole time, waiting to trip me. I bite the inside of my cheek until it stings, metal on my tongue. Keep it together, Merritt. Men like Bill don't complain. They finish the job, wipe the bench, and put the tools away. So I play my role, the good husband who dreams, the future father who believes. I set a plate on the table, loud enough to travel. The house goes a little quieter. I pitch my voice just right, warm and full of hope, and send it sailing into the kitchen like a flare. I can't wait to be a dad. Silence answers, the kind that sticks to walls. Behind the faucet hiss, Naomi breathes out. Keiko murmurs something I meant to miss. I keep smiling. I nod at nothing. And inside, something old and proud starts bleeding, quietly, into the joints of the crib I built with my own hands. After that dinner, I made a decision. Play dumb, play soft, play safe. I left my laptop open on baby name sites, Jackson, Miles, Hannah, like a man daydreaming in a waiting room. I stacked 2 fatherhood books on the coffee table, spines loud with good intentions. When Naomi walked by, she paused. Her mouth made a smile that didn't touch her eyes, then kept going. I caught the flicker. I wrote it down in my head, the way I log freight weights and route times, small numbers that add up to truth. I asked simple questions about swaddles and car seats. I offered to repaint the nursery. I said we should practice breathing techniques, then pretended the YouTube video lost signal. Every move harmless, every move bait. That night, I let a kids app pronounce Japanese baby names out loud. I tilted my head like I was hearing a foreign bird. Naomi snorted. "Naomi, you'll never learn Japanese," she said, voice sugar over concrete. I smiled and nodded, the way you nod when a dog bares its teeth. Under my breath, I repeated each name perfectly, just once, just enough for me. Plant the seed. Water it with patience. Watch who grows nervous. I kept my face open, hopeful, dumb. Inside, I started measuring exits. We were on the couch, a background anime running while I scrolled baby monitors on my phone like any new dad would. On screen, a character cracked a pun in clean, simple Japanese. one of those throwaway lines that only lands if you understand. The laugh hit me before I could catch it, small, honest, a reflex older than caution. Naomi's head snapped. "Why did you laugh?" No smile, no play. I didn't blink. "Physical comedy," I said, shrugging at the pratfall like a man who laughs at falling, not words. I took a slow sip of water, let the glass clink the table like I had nothing to hide. Keiko was in the recliner, folding a blanket. "Sorwa," she started, then let it die in her throat. The air thinned. The TV kept talking to no one. I could feel the room hunting for me, the way a house goes quiet when something moves in the walls. Naomi's eyes swept across my face like a scanner, too quick to accuse, too slow to be casual. She didn't find anything. I left her nothing but pulse and breath. Inside, I marked the moment. Curiosity is a crack. Cracks widen. Cracks tell you where to push. I laughed again, at the replayed fall, just enough to say I'm harmless, just enough to make her wonder. At dinner, I kept it light. Meatloaf, green beans, the kind of Tuesday that makes a man believe in quiet. I opened my phone and said it like a joke, like a New Year's resolution that never sticks. Maybe I should try Duolingo, Japanese. Be nice to know what you and your mom talk about. The fork slipped from Naomi's hand, clean little clink against the plate. Not loud, but true. Reflex beats acting every time. She recovered fast. "It's really hard," she said, a smile with no heat. "Don't waste your time." I shrugged and drank water. Fair. Then I asked Bill about a miter saw he'd been eyeing on Craigslist, like the moment never happened. He went on about blade guards and kickback. I nodded, counted breaths. The kitchen faucet hissed a little too long. In my head, second confirmation. Not evidence for court. Evidence for the part of me that still wanted to be wrong. I cleared plates. Naomi thanked me, too sweet. Keiko dried her hands, eyes anywhere but mine. That fork tone kept ringing in my memory, like metal cooling after fire. Some lies talk, some lies drop. Tonight, a piece of cheap silverware told me exactly where to push next. Tomorrow, I'd start with money. I came through the door with a smile, I meant. "Boss pulled me aside," I said, hanging my jacket. $15,000 bonus. The number felt heavy in my mouth. Naomi's arms were around my neck before I set my keys down. Keiko showed up half an hour later like she'd heard it through the walls. I plated takeout and made small talk. From the kitchen, a whisper rode the steam, soft, slick in Japanese. Motto hikidasu. Squeeze more. There it was. Money over love, fuel over flame. I leaned into it. "Been thinking," I told Naomi. "Could do Uber after work, sell my old gaming setup, whatever it takes to set the kid up right." Her eyes brightened like I'd handed her a map out of a storm. She nodded too quickly, like agreement was a reflex she'd practiced. By afternoon the next day, she'd quit. Not a quiet exit either. One of those bridge burner emails that plays brave and lands dumb. Sexist boss, toxic culture, coworkers incompetent. She showed me on her phone, waiting for applause. I gave her a careful "proud of you" and logged the timing in my head. That night, in the blue light of the living room, a message flashed on her screen while she showered. "We can extract more." It wasn't even hidden. I stared at the words. Not a love story, a ledger. And my name was the account. A ledger needs an audit. I called Hector Salgado, a PI who doesn't waste verbs. I gave him 3 facts: names, dates, and what I refused to lose. He didn't blink at the mess. By noon, he had Trent Lawson on a string. Marketing guy, clean record, the kind of man who smiles into his phone. I built my own file. A spreadsheet that tracked every dollar since Naomi quit. Baby items, delivery fees, little luxuries that multiplied like rabbits. I color-coded columns, spend, source, motive, and watched a pattern grow teeth. Then I backed it up 3 ways. Encrypted drive in the toolbox, a cloud folder under a nonsense username, and an email drop only I could open. Belt, suspenders, and a second belt. Ohio law gave me the right to move half our joint savings before separation. I did it. Not to punish, just to keep my walls standing when hers came down. I logged the transfer, printed the receipt, and slid it into a plain manila envelope. Then I sat across from Lauren Pierce, my attorney, while she read everything in silence. She didn't comfort me. She respected me. That mattered more. She turned the retainer around with a pen. "We proceed," she said. I signed. And in that dry whisper of ink on paper, the balance of power finally tipped toward me. We hosted a small family night, cheap wine, paper plates, the kind of gathering where people tell you to relax because the world is kind. I set out appetizers. Naomi glowed for the crowd, and Keiko floated room to room like she owned the air. I kept moving, the way a man keeps his hands busy when his head is a storm. They drifted toward the kitchen. Laughter rolled out, bright and brittle, Japanese, fast. I slid my phone into my pocket and tapped record. No drama, no speeches, just a quiet click that said, "I'm done being the only one in the dark." Her cousins went silent first, eyes down at the counter, at their nails, at anything that wasn't me. Naomi's voice rose, the exact same tone she used when she wanted a discount or an apology. She told the story like it made her fearless. How easy it was. How blind I was. Keiko's laugh turned sharp. Auntie tried to steer her back. Didn't matter. Naomi leaned in, dropped the line like a dare, like a brand on my skin. If I get pregnant again, I'd do it the same way. Warm kitchen, cold spine. That sentence didn't echo. It lodged. Someone cleared a throat. A fork scraped china. No one looked at me. I carried in more appetizers with a smile that fit like a mask and thought, fine, let the room choose. My pocket kept recording. The truth was finally clocking in. I pitched a 3-day work trip like it was nothing. Mandatory training, hotel coffee, death by PowerPoint. Naomi nodded too fast. "That's fine," she said, already somewhere else in her head. "Fine works for me." Before I left, I made the house honest. Ring at the door, discreet audio where people actually live, kitchen, hall, living room. Ohio law said one-party consent in your own home. I was that party. I tested levels the way Bill checks a spirit level. Slow, exact, unshakable. Whispered words came through clean enough to shave with. Naomi watched me demo the app. "It makes me feel safe," she said, palms together like a prayer. I smiled and meant it. Good. With the baby coming, we need safe. What I didn't say, you just approved the truth. I armed the system. The little light blinked. Green, patient, unforgiving. A small eye in every room we used to share, not to humiliate, not to trap, but to verify. The house finally looked back at us, and I felt something shift inside me, the way a beam settles when weight is moved to the proper post. I set my bag by the door, kissed her cheek like a habit, walked out into Ohio air that smelled like rain and cut grass. The cameras hummed. The truth had a home now. But inside that same house, Naomi was already opening another kind of window, one that didn't belong to me. While I was driving into the storm, she was setting the next move in motion, the kind that doesn't shout, just waits, patient, polished, practiced. And the part that scared me most wasn't what she'd do next. It was realizing. She'd started long before I ever pressed record. I checked into a motel off I-270 where the ice machine never stops talking. 4 feeds lit my laptop, front door, kitchen, hall, living room. My house in boxes of light. My pulse adjusted to the frame rate. You get used to anything if it keeps you alive. Evening slid in. The kitchen view caught Naomi on the phone, voice low, careful, Japanese smooth. One word I didn't need translated. Evan. Tomorrow night. Clear as a receipt. I named the folder the way accountants name pain. Day 1 confirm Evan. I ate a sandwich that tasted like cardboard and waiting. A dull ache sat in my chest like a fist that wouldn't unclench. I breathed through it, the way you breathe through a blood draw. Still, steady, somewhere else for a minute. She laughed at something Keiko said. Then came the line, soft and smug, the kind you whisper when you think the walls are loyal. He's too stupid. I clicked save, not angry, not surprised. Not just colder. There's a difference between being insulted and being documented. One bruises, the other builds a case. I scrubbed back 10 seconds, listened again, logged the timestamp. Parallel lives on opposite sides of town, hers planning a visit, mine counting the miles between a promise and a fact. The screens kept breathing. I kept breathing with them. Tomorrow, the house would answer every question, or so I thought, because some answers don't wait for permission. I worked from the motel like any other Tuesday. Emails, spreadsheets, a calendar full of people who didn't know my house was a witness. Every hour I checked the feeds, Naomi making eggs, a show droning in the background, a video call where her face did that polite smile she saves for people she doesn't respect. It was all so regular it scraped me raw. I logged the time she ate, the time she napped on the couch, the time she stood at the sink and stared through the window like the future was somewhere out past the fence line. I wrote it down anyway. Routine is a map. Maps show routes and traps. By 3, the air in the room felt stale. I walked slow loops through the parking lot, counting steps between oil stains, letting the noise of the highway smooth out the noise in my chest. I watched a crow bully a sparrow off a French fry and thought, that's marriage when the truth is late. Back upstairs, I added clean lines to the timeline. No heat, just facts. Then a tiny pulse of light from the phone on the nightstand. A notification from home, a preview of a message I wasn't meant to see. Tonight, 2 syllables, no sender, enough to move the needle. But normal has a way of cracking the minute you call it safe. Anticlimax is still pressure. It just doesn't shout. I booked a last-minute slot with Dr. Ruth because my head felt like a drawer jammed with tools. She listened the way good mechanics do, quiet, with respect for the machine. "What do you want, Merritt?" she asked. I tried on the easy answers and threw them out. I didn't want scenes. I didn't want revenge porn for the soul. I wanted to walk out clean, still employable, still able to shave in the morning without hating the man in the mirror. "I want to survive," I said. "Legally. Fully." She nodded like a judge who's seen every kind of wreck. "Then say it right. You're not spying. You're surviving. You're documenting what affects your life, your money, your name." I exhaled for the first time in days. Words matter. The label you choose decides whether you drown in it. "What happens when this ends?" I asked. "You rebuild," she said. "Anger lifts heavy for a while, then it drops the weight. Your job is not to pick it back up." We sat in the comfortable quiet that only tells the truth. When I left, the sun had that late afternoon honesty to it. I wasn't cleaner, I was steadier. Back at the motel, I opened my laptop, checked the feeds, and said it out loud so I'd remember later. I'm not hunting. I'm surviving. And survival has a sound. You just don't hear it until the floor gives way. And the word held. Past midnight, the motel room felt like a waiting room for bad news. I logged into our router the way a man checks a front lock twice. Admin panel. Connection history. There they were. Video calls between 11:08 p.m. and 11:52 p.m. 3 nights a week, like church for liars. Same external IP each time. I copied it, pasted it into a lookup, and felt my pulse sync with the cursor. West Side apartment complex. I knew the area. I hit screenshot. Again. Timestamps, duration, device names, Naomi's laptop, Naomi's phone. Everything preserved like bugs in SAP. I grabbed the ARP table, the DHCP leases, anything a decent skeptic would ask for later. Evidence that doesn't blink. I sent the packet to Hector with a subject line that didn't hide my hands. Trace this. Then I waited out the longest 5 minutes of my life. When his reply came, I didn't open it right away. I just listened to the quiet, made sure I could hear my own breath. Then I clicked. Confirmed. Evan Cruz, Unit 3B. Simple as a socket wrench. Cold as a receipt. I stared at the screen until the words felt ordinary. That's the thing about truth. Once it shows up, it doesn't need to shout. It just sits down at your table and waits for you to act. And mine was about to stand up and stare back. I took the folder to Lauren the next morning. She read fast, then leaned back like a carpenter checking if a frame is square. "Listen," she said, "Ohio is one-party consent. If you're part of the conversation or it happens in your home, you're legal. But legality isn't the same as leverage." "I hear you." "Good. Stop anything that even looks like entrapment. No scripts. No bait. Don't try to make her say anything. Let real life play out. Judges smell setups. I nodded and wrote it down because writing things down keeps men like me from doing something dumb. She sketched the plan in 4 clean strokes. Verify paternity immediately after birth. Do not sign any acknowledgement. Lock down finances you're entitled to. Present facts, not feelings. We'll build a witness chain, she added. Your PI, the cousin who looked sick at the party, anyone who heard anything, English or Japanese. We'll use your recordings to find the witnesses, not to win with the recordings. She capped the pen, slid it toward me. Legal, but present wisely. On the drive back, I rolled that line around in my mouth like a nail before the hammer hits. Not spying, surviving, not rage, strategy. The house could keep its secrets a little longer. I was done giving it mine. The plan was clean in my head when Naomi doubled over by the sink, hands to her belly, eyes gone. I grabbed keys, shoes, purse, nothing else. ER lights always look like truth you can't outrun. Nurses moved fast. Monitors hummed like insects. Round ligament pain, the doctor said. Common, not labor, no emergency. The word common should have calmed me. It didn't. I watched her sleep in that stiff chair, jaw slack, one hand still on her stomach like a reflex from a better life. My anger felt dumb standing next to real pain. I wet a washcloth, cooled her forehead, buzzed the nurse when the IV beeped wrong, adjusted the blanket when her foot slipped out. Not because she deserved me, because I deserved me. A man chooses who he is in small rooms with no audience. I thought about every word I'd recorded, every laugh in another language, every plan to use my name like an ATM. The hate came up hot, then went cold. She shifted, winced, breathed. I whispered it so only I could hear, a line I needed more than sleep. Revenge is easy. Compassion is harder. When the discharge papers printed, I thanked the nurse. I drove her home slow through empty streets, the kind where a man can see exactly who he's becoming. The next morning, I started pulling my history out of that house one box at a time. Not a rage move, a preparation. The storage unit smelled like dust and old rubber, safe in its own ugly way. I wrapped my parents' photo in bubble, lied about a loose frame, and watched Naomi accept it without a question. Deja vu. Easy lies pass the quickest. I took the letters my dad wrote my mom in '89, the ones with coffee rings and bad pen ink. The hunting knife my grandfather sharpened on Sundays. The blue quilt my mother stitched when I left for college. Small things you don't realize are anchors until the boat starts drifting. I shot photos of everything as it went into boxes. Inventory app, item, condition, location, timestamp. Proof is a habit now. I labeled the bins with tape and a black marker like I was cataloging a fire after it burned. Back at the house, walls looked normal, which is its own kind of lie. I told Naomi the framing shop on Riverside does good work. She smiled, almost grateful for my errand. In the unit, I slid the bin onto the concrete, rolled the door down, and heard the corrugated metal punch the air, one clean clang that felt like a verdict. I stood there a beat longer than I needed. Then I locked it. And for the first time in weeks, a small part of me stayed locked with it, safe. Hector chose a coffee shop where the music is low and the ice melts slow. I took a table 3 rows back, ball cap down, eyes on a newspaper like it was 1997. Trent Lawson walked in looking exactly like the type. Pressed polo, phone face up, a smile that works better on strangers than mirrors. Hector kept it simple. Names, dates, the money. Trent talked like he always had a good reason. $5,000 to make it go away. Late texts, a few hotel receipts he figured no one would check. He wasn't proud, he wasn't sorry, he was relieved. Like confession works the same as character. Mind if I record this? Hector asked. Calm, direct. Trent nodded. Trent. Yeah, he said, and kept talking. Consent, clean as a signature. I watched his hands, the way they fluttered when he said her name, the way he flattened his palms when mentioning the baby, as if pressing wrinkles out of a shirt. 40 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A secure link, a code scrawled by a thumb that never shook. Hector walked past my table, didn't look. He didn't need to. Back in my car, I played 10 seconds just to hear the tone, the steadiness of a man admitting math. Then I shut it off. He admitted everything. Not victory, not yet. But weight moved from my chest to the file. At home, the mirror was a bad audience. I tried out the cold version first. Facts in a straight line, no heat, no stray detail. It sounded like a police report written by a man who hadn't bled. Then I tried the angry version, voice up, veins out, a list of every hour I paid for with trust. It tasted cheap in my mouth. Finally, the calm version, which felt like reading a eulogy for somebody who wasn't dead. None of it fit. Not my hands, not my name. I set the script down, pictured the kitchen, the couch, the hall, every place in that house where half-truths grew like mold. What did any speech do that the recordings, the logs, the receipts, the tests wouldn't do cleaner? I sat on the edge of the tub, stared at the grout line where the caulk had cracked, and understood. The only language that still respected me was action. No confrontation, no preview. Let real life hang itself on its own hook. I brushed my teeth to keep from talking to the walls, crawled into bed and looked at the ceiling until the lines blurred into water. Sleep didn't come. A plan did, and it was small enough to keep. I whispered it into the dark so I wouldn't forget. Silence is the plan. Lauren laid it out like a field manual. Post-birth plan, she said, sliding me a single page that could carry a man. First, do not sign the birth certificate. Not at the hospital, not later. You sign nothing until DNA. I nodded. She kept going. Second, paternity test within hours. Pay for rush. We want results in 48, not 5 days. Third, your demeanor. No scenes. Judges don't reward theatrics, they reward adults. She tapped the last line. Protect your money. Move only what you're legally entitled to. Document every dollar. Freeze what can be frozen. We'll ask for temporary orders the second the results hit your inbox. I read it twice. It wasn't romantic. It was oxygen. This is how a man walks out with his name still his. What if she tries to push the paperwork at the bedside? I asked. You step back and say, we'll sign once the paternity test is complete. Calm, repeat if needed, nothing else. I took the pen. My hand didn't shake. Signing her retainer months ago felt like waking. Signing this plan felt like a door unlocking from the inside. Remember, she said as I stood, no bait, no traps, let the truth do the heavy lifting. I folded the page into my pocket, stood up straighter, and knew exactly what I wouldn't be doing when the baby came. I finished the install on a quiet Saturday. Camera at the door, one in the hall, one in the living room, one in the kitchen. No secrets in bathrooms or bedrooms. Lines matter, even now. I ran the demo like a salesman because that's what she needed. Look, I said, showing Naomi the app. Motion alerts, audio. We can check in from anywhere. Safer for the baby. She lit up, relief like a porch light. She hugged me, cheek to my shoulder, the way habits do their best to feel like love. This makes me feel safe, she said. It makes me feel safe, too, I answered, and for once the same sentence meant two different lives. Her smile held. Mine didn't. I watched the tiny green LED blink, steady, patient, unforgiving. Evidence isn't a scream, it's a heartbeat that never misses. She went to set out bottles to dry. I stood there a second longer with the phone warm in my hand and the hollow in my chest colder than January. Then I armed the system. One click. The sound was nothing. The meaning was everything. Naomi kissed my cheek, said thank you. I said you're welcome to the woman who had just co-signed her own audit. The house wasn't a home tonight. It was a witness, and witnesses don't forget. I checked into the same motel like a man clocking in for a hard shift. Same room, same hum behind the wall. I texted Naomi a photo of the lobby coffee and a throwaway line about long meetings, then opened the feeds. Within minutes, she called Keiko. The first words were worry, soft, performative, the kind of concern you wear like jewelry. Then the laugh slid out. Japanese, quick. A name I didn't need translated. Evan. Tomorrow. Time window. The casual cruelty of logistics. I labeled the folder, Day 2 Countdown. Attached the last clips and sent them to Lauren with clean timestamps. Everything is set, I wrote. 3 words that landed like a starter pistol. The weather app muttered about storms. My spine already had one. I paced the motel hall and counted steps between the exit signs. 1, 2, 3, breathe. When the phone vibrated, it was a calendar ping I didn't remember setting, probably from a life that thought anniversaries mattered. I shut it off. Back in the room, I ran through the plan like a pilot. Don't confront, don't bait, document. When this turns ugly, let the law do the hitting. On the screen, the house sat still. On the line, the clock finally ticked out loud. Tomorrow had a name, a time, and a lock I intended to open. Ohio rains like it means it. Slow, gray, all day. I watched her clean the kitchen like a penitent. Wipe, rinse, repeat. Then fold laundry on the couch she turned into headquarters. The feeds made my home look like a stage after the audience leaves. No heat. Just props. A text flashed on the corner of my screen, 7 p.m. No emoji. No fluff. Precision is its own kind of confession. I logged it, then closed the laptop for 10 minutes because I needed to remember how to breathe without a camera telling me it was okay. I stood under the motel awning, watched the rain stitch the parking lot into one sheet, and thought how storms don't argue. They just arrive and do their job. Back upstairs, I reopened the feeds. The house was dim the way early evening always is. Naomi moved slower now, checking her phone, checking the clock, checking a reflection like she could edit what was about to happen. At 6:59, I wiped my palms on my jeans and told myself this wasn't hunting. It was notarizing. At 7 o'clock, the ring chime cut through the room. Single note, clean edge. My chest answered it. I didn't rush. I didn't blink. I clicked into the door feed and watched the future knock. Evan kissed her in the doorway like he'd paid the mortgage. His hand went to her belly with the casual authority of a man who thinks he belongs. My porch light made a halo I didn't approve. They drifted to the couch with paper boxes of Chinese takeout, small cartons sweating on my coffee table. The chopsticks clicked. The TV murmured. Naomi laughed in that loose way I hadn't heard in months. They looked comfortable, two people who had practiced this, reaching across cushions, tasting each other's food, talking with their knees touching. My house wore their night like a borrowed coat. I felt the walls of the motel get small. I walked the parking lot in slow rectangles, counting tailpipes and lightning scars in the asphalt. Rain stitched my jacket. Anger tried to run point. I moved it to the back of the line. This wasn't about fury. It was about proof. Back in the room, my hands were steady. I widened the kitchen feed, then the living room, then the hall, a triangle of angles that told a single story. Naomi leaned her head on his shoulder. He kissed her hair like it was his to bless. I pressed record clip. Not a slam, not a shout, just a clean click that sounded like a lock turning the right way. I labeled the file. I let it save. The evidence didn't love me. It respected me. Lauren's email hit before midnight. Public records, tidy and brutal. Keiko, credit cards stacked like bad decisions. A bankruptcy 7 years back. Balances that crawled. Interest that bit. A timeline of emergencies that somehow always coincided with my milestones. The month I got promoted. A big purchase. The bonus? 3 withdrawals, 2 gifts out of our joint account. 1 transfer labeled temporary. Temporary never is. I laid the report next to my spreadsheet. The fit was ugly and perfect. Naomi's quit notice. The Bridgeburn email. The sudden talk of security and what families do. Money over love. Not theory, pattern. I wrote it down in plain words so I couldn't lie to myself later. This wasn't romance gone wrong. This was extraction. You don't negotiate with a leak. You shut the water off. I added notes to the margin. Motive established. Financial dependency documented. Mother's influence quantified. A man can take a lot if he knows the why. The why was here in black ink that didn't blink. I forwarded the packet to Lauren with the subject line I'd been avoiding because it felt like admitting a death. Pattern established. Then I closed the laptop and stared at my hands. Same scars, same calluses, hands that had built furniture, paid bills, fixed leaks. Tonight they built a case, and that felt like the first honest thing I'd done all month. I got home after Evan left like nothing had shifted on its hinges. Shoes by the door, the faint smell of soy sauce still in the air. Naomi came out of the hallway with that soft smile she wears when she wants the night to be easy. How was the training? Slides in a buffet, I said. Too much pasta, not enough coffee. I heard my voice do small talk like it was clocking in. She stepped closer, fingers at my collar like she could smooth me into a different man. You should come to bed. I'm beat, I said, gentle. Early start tomorrow. The lie was plain and polite, like a no-soliciting sign. In the bathroom mirror, my eyes looked dry. No shine, no fight, just a sheet of glass over water that doesn't move anymore. I brushed my teeth to fill the room with noise that wasn't either of us. She waited at the bedroom doorway. You okay? Yeah, I said to the sink. I turned off the light and walked past her. The floor didn't creak. My shoulder didn't touch hers. I lay down facing the wall, a clean edge between bodies. After a while, she let out a long, careful breath, half sigh, half surrender. Negative space does the talking when words only make things worse. Tonight, my silence was full. I met Lauren with a drive full of clips that felt like a chest full of stones. We watched in short pieces, doorway kiss, couch lean, the takeout carton sweating on my table. She didn't flinch. She paused on timestamps and nodded like a woman measuring lumber. Ohio doesn't pay much for adultery, she said. It colors the story. It doesn't write the verdict. What moves the needle is paternity and money. So all this, I started. Context. It gets us witnesses, it builds credibility, but we don't lead with it. We lead with science. She drew the line again, cleaner this time. DNA within hours, rush processing, no acknowledgement of paternity, no signatures, no pressure scenes. You'll feel the moment when a nurse hands you a pen. You do not take it. You ask for the swab, calm, repeat as needed. And the money? I asked. Document. Separate what you're allowed. Temporary orders as soon as the lab email hits. Keep your head. Judges remember who kept their head. I looked at the paused frame of my front door, Evan's hand on Naomi's belly like a brand. It burned, and then it didn't. Lauren capped her pen. This is about your name, Merritt, not revenge. Hold the line. I left her office lighter, not happier. Clarity isn't comfort. It's a handle. And I had one. I spent a Saturday turning my life into redundancies. I pushed every file, clips, logs, spreadsheets, into a vault email that doesn't have my name on it. New password, ugly and long, the kind you don't even try to remember. I shared access with exactly two people, Lauren and Hector. If I get hit by a bus or a bad idea, the truth still shows up to work. Off-site backup next. Encrypted drive into a toolbox under a coil of extension cord no one touches but me. A second cloud folder with a nonsense username that wouldn't mean anything to a thief. Belt, suspenders, chain, banking after that. I changed passwords like I was changing locks after a break-in. Turned on transaction alerts for every account. Push, text, email. If a dollar sneezes, I get tissues. I called the bank and confirmed the separation of funds I was legally allowed to move. Not to punish, just to stop the bleeding. I kept a clean ledger. Dates, amounts, reasons. Paper eats doubt. Back at the laptop, I logged out of everything, then back in, one by one. When the final prompt came up, two-factor authentication, I hit approve and waited for the green check. Success. Not a celebration. A wall that won't tip. I closed the lid and sat in the quiet. A fortress isn't loud. It's patient. And tonight, it had my name on the gate. We sat in a circle of couples at the hospital class, all of us holding handouts like maps out of a storm. The instructor was cheerful in that way people get when they live around emergencies. She showed me where to press on Naomi's lower back. I pressed exactly there. My hand felt like a glove left in a freezer. Other men cracked jokes about fainting. Their partners rolled eyes and smiled. I didn't joke. I counted breaths and stared at the floor tile seams the way a man studies grain in wood, searching for straight lines. Naomi looked over her shoulder. "You okay?" she whispered. "Yeah," I said, and made my voice sound like normal. My palm kept the pressure. My chest kept the distance. We practiced swaddling with a plastic doll that didn't weigh enough to be believed. I folded the blanket neat, corners crisp, and wondered who taught me to be this steady while the house burned. The instructor stopped behind us, watched my hands, and nodded. "Great partner," she said to the room. I swallowed hard enough to feel it in my ears. I didn't deserve the compliment, or maybe I did. for the parts of me nobody clapped for. On the drive home, Naomi reached for my hand. I let her have it for one stoplight, then I let go first. Hector handed me the final report the way a man hands over car keys after a long tow. Timeline clean from first lie to last call, dates, addresses, bank pulls, router logs, the party transcript with the one sentence that won't rot. If she got pregnant again, she'd do it the same way. He'd boxed every exhibit, labeled, cross-referenced, numbered, evidence, not feelings. Trent's signed statement sat up front, plain, ugly, useful. He'd testify if needed. No surprises, Hector said. That's mercy in our language. I read the report like an obituary for a life I'd already buried. My name showed up a lot, not as a punchline, as a payer. You learn things about yourself when you see them in black ink that doesn't tremble. Lauren slid the binder toward me. This becomes Exhibit A through Z, she said. We build the case around the bones. I initialed tabs, one by one, the way you tighten lug nuts in a star pattern so the wheel won't wobble. Then I signed the last page. No speech. Just a pen making a sound that didn't care about my heart. Lauren closed the cover. The binder made a small, final clap against her desk. That noise wasn't dramatic. It was definitive. A verdict waiting on a test. I built the last layer like a man who knows lightning can strike twice. New burner email, nothing close to my name. I forwarded everything there in batches, videos, logs, Trent's statement, Hector's report, Lauren's plan. I set auto-forward on a timer. Every 12 hours it sends the newest files to the burner, then to a second account that only exists on paper. If I forget, the system remembers. I copied the whole archive to an encrypted drive and locked it in the safe behind the tool chest. Not creative, effective. I printed a short index with dumb file names only I could decode. I taped it under the bottom drawer of my desk, where dust is the only witness. I texted Bill. We should talk soon. No context. He'd make space. He always did. Then I cleared my browser history and watched the empty list sit there like fresh snow. Clean isn't innocent. Clean is prepared. For myself more than anyone, I wrote a single line on a sticky note and slid it into the safe before I shut the door. If I vanish, truth won't. I turned the key, felt the tumbler bite, and stepped back. The house looked normal. The way a locked door looks like any other door until you try the handle. Normal was a costume. Tonight, I dressed it with alarms. Close to midnight, she gripped the counter and whispered, "It hurts." I grabbed keys, purse, insurance card, nothing else. The streets were shiny with Ohio rain, wipers thudding time I didn't have. Her knuckles went white around my hand at every red light. "Breathe with me," I said, counting like I was holding a rope we both needed. ER doors, fluorescent truth. A nurse clipped a band to her wrist and rolled us down a hall that smelled like sanitizer and endings. Cuffs, cords, belly gel cold as January. Then the room settled into a rhythm I couldn't control. Monitor beep, beep, beep. The pump's soft hiss. The nurses practiced calm, 4 centimeters, then 6. The doctor saying words that landed like orders. I kept my palm on her shoulder through each contraction, the weight that says I'm here, even when here is complicated. Bill arrived, rain on his jacket, jaw working. Keiko came in behind him, already talking, and then quiet when she saw my face. The monitors kept time. Beep, beep. Faster now. Somebody raised the bed. Somebody checked again. I wanted the moment to blink, to stall. It didn't. The nurse looked up, voice low but final, like the last click before a safe opens. It's time. Everything I'd planned tightened into one word. Hold. And I held. 2 hours of pushing turns, minutes to rope. She bore down and broke the air with a sound I'll hear long after this is over. The monitor sprinted, then steadied. Beep, beep, beep. The doctor caught a slick, furious miracle and announced him like a headline. Boy, 7 pounds 3. He cried like the world owed him rent. The room answered with applause only hospitals know. Nurses praising, Bill crying into his sleeve, Keiko talking too fast to the ceiling. I stepped back 1 pace, just enough to see everything and nothing. A nurse wiped the boy, wrapped him, placed him on Naomi's chest. Her face softened into a woman I barely remembered, the one from the early mornings when we were still honest. For a breath, I let that image sit where the anger usually lives. Then the cart rolled in. Clipboard. Forms. The nurse smiled in that gentle, loaded way they teach. Dad, I'll just need a couple of signatures. A simple pen slid toward me, blue ink, cap off, the whole world pretending this was automatic. The page waited. Father's name, father's acknowledgement, blank lines like open traps. I felt every plan I'd made rise to the surface and lock into place. The room buzzed warm. My hands stayed cold. The pen stopped at my fingers and the air froze around it. Hold, Merritt, hold. I looked at Naomi first. Her eyes were swollen, shining, open in a way I hadn't seen in months. Then I turned to the nurse. The room held its breath. I spoke in the language I'd kept folded in my pocket for years, every syllable sharp enough to cut bandages. Before signing the birth certificate, please conduct a paternity test. It's urgent. Keiko's mouth fell open like a door unlatched by wind. Naomi's face emptied, then flooded. Bill blinked hard, trying to place the sound. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I looked the nurse in the eye and said it again in plain American. I request a paternity test. Expedited. The word traveled. You could feel it land. The nurse swallowed and nodded. The pen on the clipboard stopped pretending it had a job to do. Naomi whispered my name like it might undo the sentence. It didn't. Keiko said something sharp in Japanese that wasn't for me anymore. Bill's what? Came out small, like a man asking a doctor to recheck the chart. I kept my hands at my sides. Calm is a tool if you know how to use it. The nurse said she'd get the kit. I said thank you. There are moments when a life divides like a log under a clean strike. This was one. I finally spoke the truth in their language and then in mine, and the room understood both. Keiko gripped the rail with both hands, knuckles white, the way people grab furniture in earthquakes. Naomi tried to cry and couldn't find air for it. Bill asked, "What's happening?" in the voice men use when they already know. The nurse returned with a small sealed kit. Her professionalism steadied the room like a level set on a beam. She explained each step the way you explain a knot, simple, exact, no drama. We'll swab the baby's cheek, then yours, labels, chain of custody, rush processing. I nodded. Understood. She peeled the first packet with a soft paper tear that sounded louder than words. A tiny cotton swab. A gentle rub inside the baby's cheek. Quick. Careful. The newborn didn't like it. He let out a protest no bigger than his fist. The swab slid into a tube, cap twisted. Click. Label pressed down with a clean thumb. Your turn, she said. I opened my mouth. The cotton touched gum, inner cheek, once, twice, silent as respect. Into the tube. Click again, the sound of something official closing. She wrote the time. I signed next to it, pen scratching calm across the line. Keiko stared at the labels like they were a verdict. Naomi stared at me like I'd vanished. Bill stared at the floor. The nurse sealed the envelope, adhesive peeled, flap pressed, thup, and handed me the consent form. I initialed each box. No speeches, no heat, just ink doing its job. Evidence doesn't hate you. It holds you up. Tonight, it stood up straight and left the room with my name spelled right. I asked Bill to step into the hall. He followed, shoulders squared out of habit, eyes soft out of practice. I gave him the shortest version that still told the truth. Trent, the recordings, the router logs, the party, the test in motion. No adjectives, just nails driven straight. He leaned back against the painted cinder block like it could hold up a decade. The color drained out of him first, then the years. 10, maybe more, gone in a blink, gone in. He stared past me, working his jaw like a man trying to swallow a stone. I raised her better, he said, and the sentence cracked in the middle. Not angry, not dramatic, just broken in a way hammers can't fix. I put a hand on his shoulder, steady, not rescuing. Two men who'd paid into the same lie without knowing it, both trying to keep our names from slipping. He nodded once. I nodded back. The monitor in the room behind us kept time we couldn't stop. The hallway smelled like sanitizer and winter coats. We didn't hug. We didn't promise anything. We stood there and let the truth do its job, empty what needed emptying. Silent catharsis isn't pretty, it's clean. When he finally breathed deep, I did too. We went back in different men than we'd been when we walked out. I left the hospital with a folder that felt heavier than paper and a chest that felt lighter than it should. The parking lot was a mirror, rain frozen into a gloss the wind kept polishing. I sat in the car, hands on the wheel, and watched my breath fog the glass like a man practicing being alone. The phone lit up. Naomi calling. Then again. Then again. Each ring carried a different script I didn't owe. I let them pass. Lauren's email slid in quiet as a verdict. Papers ready. Await result. I opened the plan in the glow of the dashboard and read it like a prayer you can actually do. No signatures. Rush DNA. Temporary orders. Calm. A couple in scrubs walked by, laughing about something small. Normal is loud when you don't have it. I put the car in gear and drove to the motel, the one that knows my name only as a card swipe. Inside, the heater clattered to life like old plumbing. I laid the folder on the desk, washed my face in water that never gets warm, and stared at my reflection until it looked like a man I could trust. The phone lit up again, buzzing across the cheap wood. I picked it up, scrolled the calls, and slid the side switch down. Silence. Isolation isn't punishment, it's a tool. Tonight, I needed a quiet room more than I needed words. The email hit at 6:07 a.m. Subject line sterile as a morgue tag. DNA results. I stared at it the way you look at a loaded tool. Respect first, then purpose. I opened the PDF. There it was in bold, cleaner than any sermon. Probability of paternity, 0.0%. No drama, no paragraph, just a number that didn't blink. My thumb hovered over the phone like it knew this was more than a scroll. I forwarded the result to Lauren with a single word in the subject line. File. Then I pressed send. That tiny blue whoosh sounded like a trigger breaking. I didn't feel victorious. I felt exact. Like a cut made straight on the first pull. The tears came late, quiet, not for her, not even for the child. Mostly for the version of me who set up a crib and believed that decency could hold back weather. I let it happen. Then I called Bill. He answered on the second ring, voice already braced. It's confirmed, I said. We both let the silence be what it was. I sat on the edge of the motel bed, hands open, the room smelling like old carpet and clean paper. My phone buzzed. Auto reply from Lauren. Papers filing now. Another click in my chest. A man doesn't always get justice. Today I got certainty. I could build on that. We met at a coffee shop near the hospital where truths are always 5 minutes away. I took the corner seat that sees the door. Naomi slid in across from me, smaller, softer, eyes searching for a version of me that died yesterday. She started with denial, clean, fast, like ripping tape. The lab could be wrong. Then minimization. It was a mistake. Then the blame, a tired loop about stress, my hours, her mother's fear. Finally begging, the kind that counts on the memory of old mornings. We can fix this. Counseling. I'll do anything. I let the words run until they ran out. I didn't interrupt. Exhaustion does better work than argument. When the last excuse hit dry ground, the table felt steady. I don't want revenge, I said, calm as a receipt. I want freedom. She blinked like the word stung. So that's it? She whispered. That's it. I stood, slid 2 bills under the mugs, and told her to keep the change. No scene, no speech, just gravity doing its job. At the door, I paused long enough to know I wasn't looking back, then pushed through. The hinge gave a clean, final sound as it closed behind me. Nothing special to anyone else. A chapter break to me. Outside, the air had that after-rain honesty. I put my hands in my pockets and started walking toward a life that didn't need an audience to be true. I moved into a 1-bedroom in Grandview with thin walls and honest rent. The kind of place where the fridge hums like a small engine and the neighbors wave with their elbows because they're carrying groceries. I slept the first night on a mattress on the floor and didn't dream. That felt like progress. I signed up for a Japanese class at the community college. No hiding it, no jokes to soften it. First day, I said my name out loud and introduced myself in the language I used to keep folded in my pocket. Nobody laughed. The word belonging sat down in a chair and stayed. Bill and I meet for coffee twice a month. He talks about sanding boards and replacing a belt on his table saw. I talk about nothing important. Sometimes we just sit, two men who lost the same thing in different ways, and let the silence mean respect. Therapy continues. Dr. Ruth asks where the anger goes when it leaves. I tell her it leaves fingerprints I still notice, but it doesn't run the house anymore. We talk about the difference between punishment and boundaries. I practice the second one. On a wet afternoon, I watched the Ohio rain turn the street into a mirror and caught my reflection in it. Smaller life, straighter spine. I unlocked my door, put my keys in the same bowl every time, and let the quiet take the first shift. I wasn't fine yet, but I was free.